If you downloaded the SQL Server files from our website, you should have a zipped folder that looks like this. Or it might be a zipped folder with your company's name as part of the file name if we converted your existing data and rolled it into the SQL database. To open the zip file, right-click and choose Extract All, and then go ahead and extract the files. Next, you'll need to decide where to put the unzipped copy of the folder. If you have an IT department, someone will probably have an opinion about that, but if you're doing this yourself and you're using SQL Server Express, then you can just drag this folder to the C drive. And there it is. So now it's time to actually take the database files and attach them to the server as an active database. So go to your Start menu and open the SQL Server 2012 folder and find the SQL Server Management Studio. You'll probably be opening the Management Studio on a regular basis when you get started, so you might want to right-click and drag it to your desktop to make a shortcut like this. So we'll open the program, and when you get to this screen, it would be a good idea to write this down. This is the name of your server, and when people log into the Riva Trademark client software for the first time, they'll need to know this. If you open the list of databases, you'll see that all we have so far are the system databases. And yes, we did download the Riva Trademark database files, but before the server can recognize those files, we have to attach them as a database. So to do that, click this Open Folder icon, navigate to the folder where you copied the files, and then choose the Attach Riva Trademark.sql file. This is a SQL script that attaches the database. If you didn't copy the Riva SQL folder to your C drive, then you'll have to edit this script. Because what the script is telling the server to do is find this file and this file in this location. If you chose a different location, that's fine, but this part of the script has to match the name and location of the folder where you copied the files. Now, back in the good old days of Windows XP, we could just execute this script and everything would be fine. Well, unfortunately, after Windows 7 came along, that's no longer the case. Let's watch what happens if we try. We get this error message saying that the server can't open the file because access is denied. So why wouldn't you be allowed to access a file that you installed on your own computer? Well, apparently when Windows 7 was being developed, Microsoft received a ton of letters that went something like this. Dear Microsoft, I think it would be a great idea if you made security in Windows 7 and any future editions of Windows as complex and confusing as possible. For example, if I create a new folder on a computer where I'm the administrator and therefore supposedly have full control, I would like to not have permissions on that folder or any files it contains unless I specifically grant those permissions to myself. Please, please, please include this new security feature because my workday isn't busy enough already and I'd really like to spend a lot of time granting permissions to myself. Sincerely, a huge fan of Microsoft Windows. So, like with almost everything else in Windows 7, we have to take some extra steps. In this case, we have to go to wherever we copied that folder. In our example, that would be the C drive. And the first thing we have to do is right-click the folder, choose Properties, and deselect the Read Only option, which Microsoft decided should be the new default. So we apply that, and we choose this option to apply the change to any files contained in the folder as well. Now, it would be great if that's all we had to do, but remember, millions of people apparently asked Microsoft to make security as complex as possible. So we still have to grant ourselves permission on the individual database files. So open the folder, right-click the file named Riva Trademark MDF, and choose Properties. Go to the Security tab, and here's our problem. Our authenticated users don't have full control on this file. The system does, the administrators do, and yes, you're probably the administrator on your computer, But for some reason, SQL Server doesn't think you have permission to use this file until you grant full control to the users, who, as you can see, don't have much in the way of permissions. To fix that problem, click the Edit button, then select Users like this, and then grant the users full control. And while you're in there, you may as well grant permissions to authenticated users too, just to be sure, because we're not exactly sure what Microsoft was thinking with all these different users. So we'll apply those changes, and then close this dialog box. And then we need to do the same thing to the file named Riva Trademark LDF. And now, after all that, Windows 7 will graciously allow us to use the database files that we copied to the C drive on a computer where we supposedly had administrator privileges all along. So we'll go back now to the SQL Management Studio and execute this script one more time. And this time we get some conversion messages, which are fine, because what matters is that the script was executed successfully, which means we now have a database. We don't see it over here yet, but that's because we have to click this refresh button. And there it is. To add a new user, open the Security tab, and then open the list of logins, and then right-click the Logins folder and choose New Login. If you want to use Windows authentication, which means the server will just take the login credentials from whatever PC is trying to connect, then each time you create a user, you'll have to enter both the network domain name and the username, something like this. If you're in a small office without a network guru who can help you get this right, then you're probably better off with this option, which means the users will log into Riva Trademark with both a username and a password like this. So we'll create a username. And since we're going to use passwords in our example, we'll select this option. If you leave this option selected, then the server is going to force you to come up with a complicated password and then change it every 30 days or so. Again, that's not something people in most small office situations really want to do, so we'll deselect that option, and then we'll enter a password for our user named Maggie. By default, the new user's database is the master database, which is something in SQL Server we don't actually want people to touch, so we're going to change the default database to Riva Trademark. And then we click the OK button, and that creates the new user. Once the new user shows up here in the logins, then open the user account one more time by double-clicking it, and this time select User Mapping. We're mapping security for Riva Trademark, so we want to choose that here. And then down here you'll see a list of roles that the user could join. These are server roles, so you can forget about those. The ones that matter are these. Users who are members of the Trademark Users group can do anything. They can add records, they can edit records, they can delete records, and so forth. Members of the Trademark No Delete group can add records and they can edit existing records, but they can't delete any records from the database. And finally, the Trademark View Only role is exactly what it sounds like. People in this group can open the database, they can view records, they can print reports, but they can't change any of the actual data. Well, we're going to make Maggie here a power user, and then we'll click the OK button to add her to that group. So now let's toggle on over to a client computer and open Riva Trademark. If you haven't entered a license number for this installation of the software, then it will still be in demo mode, which is why these options aren't available yet. To license the software, go ahead and open it in demo mode, and then go to the Help menu and choose About Riva Trademark. Enter the license number we gave you in this box, and then click the License button. And when you see this message, it means you're ready to log into the SQL Server database. So go back to the File menu and choose Connection. And now you can enter the name of the server here, which is why we suggested writing down the name of the server when you set up the database. So we'll paste that in. The database is named Riva Trademark, so this is fine. And since we're using names and passwords, we need to select this option. And then we'll enter the username and the password we just created. And we'll tell the system to save the password for next time. You can decide if you want to do that or not. And if we've set up everything correctly and the network connections are all good, then we should be able to click the Test Connection button and see a message like this. Okay, we know we have a proper connection, so now we can log into the database. And to create more users, we would go back to the SQL Management Studio and just repeat the same steps. If you follow all these steps and still run into problems, then please email us or give us a call, and we'll be happy to walk you through the process.